All right, welcome everyone. Today we're diving into something really profound, a map of the soul's journey. It's this incredible 7-stage pathway of transformation drawn from a really unique reading of sacred texts.
So, let's just jump right in with a big question, okay? What if the journey of your soul was already mapped out? I mean, what if the path from our, that fiery ego, all the way to a state of pure light actually followed a clear, universal pattern? And what if it wasn't just some philosophical idea, but was baked into the very physics of spirit?
So, we're going to walk through this whole evolution together. It's a journey through 7 really distinct stages. You can kind of see the whole thing at a glance here. It starts with a spark of fire, moves through clay and water, and eventually heads toward becoming a being of pure light. We're going to break down each of these steps one by one.
All right, let's start with the personal journey, right? The microcosm of you and me. The whole thing really centers on what's called the Nafs. Now, you can think of the Nafs as the ego, or the self, or your psyche. And we're going to follow it as it goes through this absolutely incredible transformation.
And what's so cool about this is how it's all laid out as this super clear progression. It starts right at our most primal, basic state, and each stage just builds on the one before it, marking a huge, fundamental shift in our consciousness and our very being.
Okay, so where does it all begin? It starts in fire. The source material calls this the Iblis seed, and the idea here is a being born from pure, raw pride, completely blind to anything outside of itself. And we're not just talking about simple arrogance here. This is a deep, primal state of self-sufficiency, one that completely denies any need for a higher power.
So, you've got this fiery pride. What happens next? Well, it gets grounded. Literally, it gets encased in what's called the atom shell of clay. And just like that, the soul isn't just pure fire anymore. Nope, it's a mix of elements. And this is the moment it first experiences duality. Good and evil, right and wrong. And that sparks the shame and curiosity that pretty much define the human condition.
But that hard, crusty shell of clay, it's not permanent. It can be softened. And that brings us to the Yahya life stage. Here, the waters of mercy start to wash over it. This is the point where that rock-solid pride just dissolves, and something new, something incredible, begins to stir deep inside, the ruh, or the divine spirit. Think of it as the perfect counterpoint to the ego, the nafs. And its awakening is what finally lets compassion bubble up to the surface.
So, compassion opens the door, right? Well, knowledge is what gives you the key. This is the Idris escape, and it's the soul's first real ascension. It's fueled by divine insight, and the ego, the nafs, it finally breaks free from the heavy, heavy gravity of all those worldly concerns, and it finds itself just suspended, floating between the physical and the spiritual.
And this next idea just illustrates it perfectly. The soul, at this stage, is like a chrysalis. The old self, that caterpillar of the nafs, it literally dissolves. It turns into goo. It's a state of being completely unmade, a totally necessary void before it can be rebuilt, reformed into a being of pure light.
So what comes out of that chrysalis? A being of light. This is the Isa, truth stage. The soul is pierced by pure, undiluted truth. The ego? Gone. Vanished. All that's left is the spirit, the Ro. And it's leading the way in absolute, complete surrender to the divine will.
But get this. This light isn't meant to just sit there and look pretty. No way. At the Miko Might stage, it becomes a force in motion. The soul is no longer just passively receiving truth. Now it's an active wielder of might, fighting on truth's behalf. With the self completely gone, it's just a pure instrument, a guardian protecting that divine trust.
And finally, we reach the end of the journey, the return to Allah. Here, the soul transcends everything, all duality. That whole struggle between the ego and the spirit, it's over. It becomes pure light once more, returning to its source in a state of perfect, completely unshakable peace.
Okay, so we've seen the personal journey, right? Now, I want you to zoom out with me. Let's pull back and see how this inner map actually reflects a much, much grander cosmic system. The source material basically suggests that our inner world is a tiny mirror of the entire creation. Pretty mind-blowing.
And right at the center of this sacred anatomy, we find the principle of Ibrahim. Think of it as the cosmic heart. And this heart, it acts like a spiritual pump or a crucible. It takes in all the deoxygenated blood of our corrupt struggles, and then, through the fire of trials and divine mercy, it pumps out the purified blood of submission. And this whole spiritual circulatory system has two very different flows. On the one hand, you've got this corrupt blood. Its source is pride, it's carried by the ego, and its effect is just those nagging whispers of doubt. But then, on the other hand, you have pure blood. This stuff is sourced from divine might, it's carried by truth, and the result is pure, crystal clear revelation. So what's the big takeaway here? The crucial point is that this entire cosmic circuit is designed for one thing: to purify creation. All our struggle, all our pride, it gets brought back to the heart. It's judged, it's infused with spirit, and then it's sent back out into the body of humanity as pure light and submission. It's a cleansing system.
Okay, so that's the system. But what powers it? What's the underlying principle that makes the whole thing tick? What are the spiritual physics that tie all of this together?
Well, the source material gives us this really powerful analogy. Think of it like this. Fire is like watts. It's a measure of raw, brute force, pure power. But light is like lumens. It's a measure of illumination, of divine knowledge. So the whole journey is really about transforming that raw power into illuminating wisdom. So the million-dollar question is, how do you turn fire into light? And this brings us to what the Source calls the ultimate cheat code for this entire system, the divine string. And the insight is profound. It says the spiritual path isn't about using our own power, our own watts, to try and build these rickety ropes to heaven. No. It's about cutting all those ropes that our ego made and just reaching out and grabbing the one, single, unbreakable connection that's been extended to us the entire time. So, when you put it all together, this entire framework really boils down to a fundamental choice. A choice we have to make about the reality we want to build, the reality we want to live in every single moment. And that choice is this. Are you busy building like Pharaoh? Are you trying to construct your own temporary little kingdom of the self, just obsessed with your own power, your own legacy? Or are you remembering the true source of all power? Are you tapping into the divine system that's actually sustaining you, the one you're going to return to? And that is why this whole pathway matters so much, because it totally reframes the spiritual journey. It's not about this strenuous act of creation, of building something. It's an act of profound discovery. It's a call to just let go. Let go of all our own frantic efforts to build our own way to salvation, and instead to simply reach out and grasp the one unbreakable handhold that has been there, waiting for us all along.